Alex Wild is back. The elite gravel racer is fresh off the biggest gravel race in the world, the 2025 Unbound 200. This is one of the craziest races on the planet. We get into it today. The strategy, the chaos, the power numbers. Stick around till the end where Alex gives us his thoughts on who the real losers were this year in the second round of the Lifetime Grand Prix. This really is a rare opportunity to peek inside the race. Alex breaks down exactly how the race unfolded. Like, how did that early breakaway go? The bits we didn't get to see on the online coverage. We get to hear about the dynamics in the chase group and the decisions that either make your day or crack you completely. He's brutally honest about what went right, what went sideways, and what he would do differently. We also go deep on big picture stuff like gravel licenses, bike setups, feed zone safety, and whether the sport's getting a little too serious or keeping that wild edge. Folks, he's back. It is Alex Wild. Alex Wild, the big show, Emporia, Kansas.
Oh, the big
How are you
show.
feeling?
The most overblown race in the world.
8:37. You guys were cooking.
Oh man, that's
Did you
probably my
ever
highlight.
think you'd go? Did you ever think you'd go under? The winner would go under 9.
I did this year. I didn't think so many would, but I had a feeling just how competitive it's getting, how fast it's getting. I think this one really leans into, I guess, the carb revolution, right? People used to just try to survive this race, and now, like personally, I was at, I think, 170 or 175 gram carb per hour, and I talked to Cam, the winner, and he was at 194 for his 8:37, which is insane.
You think the high carbs making that much difference?
It just makes it possible. I mean, you think about it just from energy in, energy out. His raw average was 295 watts. So he is going through roughly 1,050 calories per hour, which is just an uphill battle. Unless Cam is sitting there and that's like his fat max, which it's possible, but I don't think so. I think that's
very
probably
unlikely. Like,
high zone 2, which is going to be high contribution of carbohydrates. I don't think it is physically possible to do that without the high carb.
it's absolutely wild. I tuned in just before the first feed station, and I think you guys blew through the first feed station like way ahead of the fastest predicted schedule, almost 40k an hour average up to that point.
Yeah. So I have my buddy Daniel wrenching for me this year with Cycle Sport, and he was like, I didn't expect to see you so soon. It's like,
You're lucky you were set up.
yeah, no, he was right at the end of the feed zone. I was definitely getting a little nervous, but he was there. But yeah, we were way ahead of schedule, and that was with some issues for me. Like I had my first crash and first flat before we even hit that aid station. So, but I mean, that's also changed, right? The first time I did Unbound, people were like, if I can get out of the feed zone within 30 seconds, that's great. Now, most people aren't putting a foot down. I think Cam, again, the winner, did double musette. So he grabbed one musette and another, and then kind of just had his stash.
Look, I don't mind that so much. I think that's just being kind of inventive, playing within the rules. But some of the stuff in the feed zones just looks Wild West shit. Was it the Giants team who had someone riding alongside on a bike doing
I
hand-ups?
actually saw that in Joe Laverick's recap the first time. I didn't hear about it, nor did I see it. But he said in the second
There's
aid
clips on
station,
social.
they had
I've seen
a
them.
rider or a staff riding next to him, which to their defense is within the rules. So it's not their job to regulate the rules. You know, if you don't want them to do that, make sure it's in the rules. Because in UCI racing, they're not even allowed to dump water on their riders. They're allowed to hand something to their rider, but they're not allowed to actually do the dump. There's regulations which side they need to be on. There's a lot of that. So I feel like in this race, the feed zones are the Wild West. And again, from Joe Laverick's blog post, he thought that was kind of the biggest. People were complaining about the crashes, and he was kind of like, crashes happen in a competitive race with a lot of money on the line. But in the feed zones is kind of where they can regulate better. I don't have the answer, but I definitely feel like we're lucky that no one did go down. Because, I mean, if you look at Sea Otter, which felt like a more regulated aid station, we had both Cole and Payson go down hard in aid stations.
What's your take on safety overall? Because probably the enduring message coming out of Unbound this year for the first time was maybe more focused on safety concerns than results.
Yeah, personally didn't experience anything that I wouldn't call racing. Like my first crash, it was a double track. Someone hopped from the left to the right, as they do, and kind of just didn't hit my front wheel, but if I didn't move, they were going to. And then that kind of caused me to hit a mud patch and go down. And for me, that's kind of just racing, you know, like
it's a racing
they don't
incident.
want to be in the wind. They see a bunch of people on the right-hand side. I've done it. Everyone does it. And it's kind of like that, the racing phrase, if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racer. So
Yeah.
it's kind of just an outcome of we are racing, and we are racing for a lot of prestige and a lot of money. You do that on the group ride, I'd probably give you a yell or a talking to, but we're racing. Like, you got to watch your front wheel, and incidents will happen. And I think in the heat of the moment, maybe you get all worked up, but at the end of the day, it's crashes happen. I think people fall into feeling like cycling is a safe sport when
Yeah, no, for sure. You can't sterilize it. But I guess it's like, I think some of the criticism I heard, which I kind of felt like, because I love the gravel scene, I really like what Unbound have done, what the whole Lifetime series have done. I think it's nothing but positive. But if someone's injured and they don't have access to an ambulance, like, that feels like a line we need to get better on.
Absolutely.
Like,
No. I'm definitely not arguing on that point. I think more just the politics, or kind of the goal of erasing crashes from the race almost can't be a goal.
Yeah.
Like,
no.
yes, you can make it safer, but the riders themselves competing for this top spot in a very prestigious race is always going to cause those situations to happen. But I agree. I mean, I have the same concerns at a lot of races. I heard rumors that it took forever to get Howie help when he crashed at Breck Epic. You know, like, these races are kind of just out there. But then I also feel for the race organizers, right? Because, I mean, they're not making the margins everyone thinks they're making. And,
Yeah.
you know, to get that kind of, like, where is the requirement, I guess, in terms of, but I
This
agree.
is it,
Someone
like,
goes down hard, and
you can't sanitize it completely, or we end up just doing criteriums, because you say, oh, well, I can just park a ambulance on the start finish line and it services everyone. Like, I'm going out to do Badlands in September. It's like 800 kilometers, and I don't know how many participants, say 500. Like, how do you staff that with medical care? Like, someone has a crash in the middle of the night on their own.
Yeah.
Like, the trade-off, I guess, is we have less cool events, but safer events. I don't know if any of us want that either.
Yeah, it's hard, right? Because it's very easy to complain. It's very hard to provide a solution. So I feel like that's kind of, I guess, just how society is. We like to point out problems, but fixing them is a whole nother thing. But I agree. I think some of the most epic events are these point-to-points, these big loops. Unbound is historically, well, it is a loop, but let's be honest, every 10 miles, you're like, I feel like I've been here before. You take a picture of Unbound, you've kind of got the whole course laid out. But yeah, I mean, who knows? Like, Sea Otter was 3 laps, so we could do something like that. But
did your pre-ride recon of the route, I know it rained in the days up to the event, did that change your mind on setup?
Yeah, I was originally going to do 2-2 air tracks on the new Diverge. Now I can say it out loud. So
Everyone
kudos to those in the
of
comments who
video.
figured it out that I couldn't fit a 2-2 in the rear of a Crux. So I like the eagle eyes. But so originally I had 2-2 air tracks. It rained a little bit leading up to it, quite a bit, a few inches, and it was quite muddy. In hindsight, tracers weren't the call out there. I think the tread is just too thin for those rocks. I got a tread puncture. Yeah, I think the air tracks might have been better, or even I was talking to Ian Boswell, and he did 45 Pathfinders, and he was like, pretty much out there, a lot of the course is just like a road. So he's always done the Pathfinders and he's liked them. And what his logic is that middle strip that's like a road tire essentially makes the tread thicker, so it protects against punctures in the center. So I don't know what I'd have done in hindsight. Definitely not the 50 tracers I ran, but maybe 45 Pathfinders or gone the other direction and done 2-2 air treks.
Pathfinders are a beast. Every gravel tire that I've had, the Pathfinders are the most puncture resistant of that kind of 45 to 47.
Yeah. I think if we had a 50 Pathfinder, it would have been no question. I think I would have gone 50 Pathfinder. I don't know if it proved out, and I don't know if it was because he was out front and I was in the pack, but we did roughly the same raw power, and he's a bit heavier than I am. So I was talking to him back and forth because in my mind that tells me something in my setup wasn't quite right, and he did something, and that was kind of the only difference. He was on the Diverge, I was on the Diverge. Both had the same wheels, so I think Unbound's changed how it raced. Like Cam got in that early break. I think what that allows you to do is not surge, so you just ride like endurance plus tempo all day, and you ride a consistent pace. Where in the group there was a lot of negative racing. We went over Little Egypt where it split last time. There was a front group of us of like 10, and then people stopped working, and then essentially the whole group came back, and we were a group of 80, and then we got to the crosswinds and it split super hard. So it's just a different style of racing in the group, especially with the mix of dynamics, right? We have the people coming from Europe that their only goal is a podium. So once that's up the road, it's like a world tour race. Like, why even finish for them, to be honest? Yeah. And then there's a Grand Prix where it's like, I need as many points as I can because I don't know if I'll need to rely on these points later. Like in my mind, Unbound was always going to be the hardest one or the most unknown for me in terms of points, but I still wanted to scrape as many points as I could. Because you never know what's going to happen at the other races, right? Like maybe I have a big crash and don't finish another race and I need these points. So it's just kind of like, you never know what's going to happen for the series.
When Cam and Simon got out, I came to the race and they had, I'm going to say, like an 8.5 minute lead. How did that affect the chase behind? Because we are starting to see more team dynamics play out. There's quite a few PA lads in the race. Is there any sense that people are starting to get organised a little bit, or is it still very individualistic?
I don't know the riders super well. Obviously, I've ridden with some of them and worked together, but my take on the Pas Normal guys is that they're kind of a group of privateers. So they're not necessarily a team that'll ride the front for one person. I think it's very similar to like the MAP Pro Privateer program, where you may not see like Freddie Ovett work with Russell, but they look like they're teammates. So I don't think it's as straightforward as you would think in terms of, hey, they're wearing the same kit, they're on the same team. I think they just have the same. It's kind of like two riders with a Red Bull helmet, right? They've got the same sponsor, but they're not necessarily in the same program. So I think that's what it was missing, is I think there wasn't a team to chase anybody down. And I think that's why the tactic worked so well for those two. And then they also got in front before, I think it's Divide Road. I think it went Call Reserve, then Divide Road. I think Divide Road was slippery. Like it wasn't muddy, like bog you down, like peanut butter mud, but it was slick. And so there's a wide range of technical abilities. And Cam is a very good technical rider. So I'm sure he got through it very well and clean. And in the back, there were splits from people either not being able to keep up with that pace or sliding out or crashing. And I think that solidified them up the road. And you have to remember, even in a World Tour race with radios, it's not as clear cut as you see on the coverage. Like we're not getting time splits every minute saying, oh, they're at 8 minutes. Yeah. Oh, they're at 9 minutes. Like I remember riding alongside with Finsty and he had his phone. And so he got a notification on his head unit for a text message. And he's like, oh, dang, they're 10 minutes up. And it was a surprise, you know? So it's like when you watch it from the coverage, it looks very straightforward. Like, why aren't they chasing? These guys are getting away. But there's a lot happening in that race. Like, coming out of that, I crashed in Divide Road. And so essentially was in the second chase group. Keegan was in the first chase group and then flatted out. Matt had flatted behind me. So a lot of the guys that maybe would work together and chase were kind of in different groups and just trying to get back to the first chase group, never mind chase down the front. And then I think there was just a general consensus that they're not going to make it because it's never been done before.
The most organized chase seems to be a group of mates rather than anything that's brand loyal. Because I know Matt Beers, Keegan train together. They train with Russell as well. It's kind of a little bit of an Arizona clique going on. They're willing to pull together.
I think it's also like their mindset is very similar. So it's like if there's a large number of us in a group that we all know everyone's going to work, like maybe riders you just know, like me, Alexi, Keegan, Matt, Finsty. If we were 5 in a group, then it would probably work out because we know we have no baggage in terms of everyone's going to take a pull, everyone's going to try to get back to the front. But just like coming out of Little Egypt, you see a couple people trying to miss a turn or right on their limit, and then that throws off the rotation, and then people get frustrated and don't want to pull this group along, and then it swells, and that just magnifies, right? Because now you have 10 more baggages because they just got back, so they're not going to come to the front. They're smoked. And then now you have a group of 60 riders just dawdling along the road, and that's why I'm saying I think that tactic of being out front was the right call. I think in hindsight, I would have tried to get in that break because you maybe lose 30 seconds to a minute on Little Egypt, but then everyone sits up and you gain that 30 seconds to a minute back without having to actually do a threshold effort.
I chatted to a Tour de France historian on the podcast only yesterday, and it was really interesting. I didn't know any of this about the Tour de France. The Tour de France was a national only race. So the National Federation would pick a team, USA would send a team, Ireland would send a team, up until like the 1950s. And what started happening was exactly what's going on in gravel now, that one or two guys would start getting supported by a bike brand, and they would start building like little coalitions within the group because we're all riding on Specialized, so we're all going to pull together. And that was the early origins of the team setup. And I wonder, is that what gravel's going through now? Because as lads get stronger, like, you know, even you're a great example, but there's another, you know, half the fields from Europe this year. As the gap is getting closer to Keegan especially, Keegan's just not going to ride on the front to bring a group back and toast himself
anymore
because he just can't anymore. Yeah, exactly.
I think he used
Previously,
to have
he could do that, win a race.
Extra power to bring the group back and then smoke the group.
Yeah.
And he might still be the strongest rider on paper. Who knows? But like you said, the gap isn't there. So for him to do that effort would bring him level or underneath somebody else in that group who could jump him. And I think, but at the same time, it's too early to say, right? Because Unbound is always kind of this unknown. I mean, he didn't do super well by Keegan standards, right? If you don't win, then you're not doing well. But last year he got like top 15, top 20 or something.
Yeah, so he crashed as well last year, didn't he?
Yeah, so I feel like it's kind of a bit of an unknown Unbound as a whole, just because you can't really control it because no one has a team. So I do think the margins are getting closer, and I think like we saw at Sea Otter, the entire level is coming up, but it's also changing how we race future races. Like, I don't know how many of the Grand Prix riders you follow, but it is the year of the drop bar mountain bike. Trekkie's already training on his for Leadville. Matt's already built his up. Finsty and Keegan already raced it last year. So I think this is the year that the top Grand Prix riders are all on drop bar mountain bikes for Leadville.
How do you think that changes Leadville? We're going to see record breaking again in Leadville?
I don't know about the record. I think Keegan obviously can beat it. I think I'm looking more at the rest of the field. I don't think Keegan's going to be the only one that goes sub 6 this year, if I had to guess. I think sub 6 is no longer going to guarantee you second place. I think 5 riders will go sub 6.
What do the Giro d'Italia, Stage Slayer, Mads Pedersen and half the professional peloton have in common? Well, they're all turning to NOMIO, the natural performance enhancer proven to reduce lactate buildup during intense efforts. In the 2025 Giro d'Italia, Pedersen's form was undeniable. The Danish star surged to 4-stage victories. This was a major leap in form from his previous season, and a key part of this preparation and performance was NOMIO. Developed by the same researchers who discovered the performance power of dietary nitrate. You know those beetroot shots that half the peloton were using? NOMIO is clinically proven to lower lactate levels, reduce oxidative stress, improve training adaptations, and deliver a noticeable boost from the very first time you take it. Riders are reporting bigger threshold power, fresher legs mid-race, and quicker recovery, all from a formula made with just 3 natural ingredients: broccoli sprouts, lemon, and sugar. Whether you're racing at the front or you're smashing local segments, NOMIO helps you get more out of every ride. Take it before key sessions or races for an immediate edge, or take your training to the next level and get more out of your hard work. Go to drinknomio.com, that's NOMIO, and check out this game-changing supplement. Details are in the episode show notes or description down below. And the dynamic and the power balance within the group is quite interesting, because we're having legit ex-World Tour riders coming across now. Like Tim de Klerk was there this year. Like even, Simon Pouliot from, like, he's riding for Tudor at the moment. Like,
Yep.
These guys have legit calendars. And I know Mohoric raced last year, but it felt like there was a little bit of tokenism in that because he was the gravel world champ, and sponsors probably, who knows what his preparation was like. He could have been out there on a holiday and, not too stressed. People are going now and making this a priority event. How is that? Is it a us versus them mentality with the Lifetime Grand Prix guys and the Europeans coming over?
Not in my mind. I actually enjoy it. Like, I think it's the cool thing for gravel for me. Like, when I first got into racing, right, GVA was winning races, an Olympic champion, and if you told me I'd be racing with him in South Africa and then again in Kansas in 2025, I'd be like, that's pretty cool, Like, I think it kind of brings everyone together, and I think that's what I enjoy most about gravel is the different backgrounds. Like, we have GVA there, former Olympic road champion, and then we have multiple winners of the Cape Epic. We had, half the Speed Company racing team. We have Matt there, we have Alexi, who had a successful career on the road with BMC. We have people who, gave up road careers to race gravel. Like, I think Mads Wirt Smith I think he was Danish champion on the road in 2021 and probably young enough to still be chasing a road career, but he chose gravel instead. So I think all those different backgrounds make it super interesting, but it's also why, like, on Divide Road, there's such a wide range of experience. You come from mountain biking, this feels like nothing. You come from road racing and your tires start moving underneath you, you're like, what's happening? Yeah. So I think it's something to be aware of, but I don't know, I really like the community aspect of it, and people coming from different countries, different backgrounds, different motivations. Like, I think it's so cool that we all get to this one start line, but we're not the same, Like, my why is different from GVA's why, is different from Keegan's why, or how we train or what we enjoy doing, but we all end up on that same start line.
Yeah, it's a real melting pot at the moment, which I think is very compelling from a storytelling perspective. And Unbound, or Lifetime, should I say, are doing a better job each year at bringing the viewers inside. Like, the live stream this year was pretty legit. My parents were over for dinner that evening, and I was like, phone under the table, kind of going, but the dynamic of the race didn't lead itself to brilliant suspense, because you had the winners basically decided with 2 hours of racing left, bar catastrophic blow up. Or,
well, if you knew the results, yeah, but I think in a race like Unbound, anything could happen, even with the 10-minute gap. You can capitulate pretty fast at the end of that race.
Is it frustrating for you in the chase groups behind? How does that, like, I'm trying to get it even, like, because Unbound is an emotional roller coaster through a race that long. what does that do to you mentally where you're in a group and you know there's just going to be no cohesion? Because for a long time we've seen Unbound was just a big true and off session.
Yeah. Yeah, I think definitely a bit frustrating, especially when you feel like you have the legs to get up there. But, I mean, I think for me, maybe it'd be more frustrating if I had succeeded results-wise at Unbound before. But I think my main goal was just to continue to take steps forward. Like the first year, I made it like 3 hours into the race before I flatted. And the second time I did it, I made it to Little Egypt, which was like 5 hours in. And so this year I made it 7 hours in before I had a mistake and front flatted. So, but I also felt this year, obviously it's easy in hindsight to say I would have stayed with the group, but I feel like this year I had the fueling and the training down that I would have been able to make it to the finish with that group. So possibly a top 10, 15 and a podium spot in the Grand Prix was in the cards, which again, taking nothing away from the riders that are on that podium. I'm not saying, hey, I would have beat them if I didn't flat. It's more internally, I've made the progress to actually be able to race Unbound start to finish, which
it's a nice
which
feeling.
For me is just a big personal win, regardless of the result sheet. I think Unbound gave me a weakness to work on in terms of the Grand Prix, and I feel I haven't put pen to paper in terms of the results for it, but power meters don't lie, and I can see the progression I'm making year over year, and that's equally exciting for me.
What was your power for it?
I think for the entire day it was 296 normalized and 260 something raw.
It's big. And what's the standout moments? Little Egypt and then that crosswind section?
Honestly, that crosswind section was harder. Maybe just you're mentally prepared for Little Egypt, but I also, like in my little notebook, I was like, I want to lead Car Reserve, which I should have said I want to lead Divide Road in hindsight. I want to lead Car Reserve or be top 5 wheels, and I want to lead or be top 5 wheels in Little Egypt. And so it was like just checked a box there. And then with Little Egypt, you can kind of lag climb a little bit in terms of like we get to that last pitch, and then, you know, if you're on your limit and people are kind of riding away from you, you kind of just shuffle down 3 wheels, and then on the rolly bits you get back on. So that one didn't feel as hard to me because I had a plan. I think the crosswinds...
What sort of power is Little Egypt?
I don't think it's anything impressive. I think it's like 400 watts for a few minutes on the climbs, and I think the whole thing is like 360 normalized for 8 to 10 minutes.
It's still sticky enough 100 mile in.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Last time that's where I came unglued. Like I was going all out for I think 330 watts. Like
yeah,
that's digging the bottom
so
of the barrel.
much. Yeah, that's just so much you've moved the needle on. Like you're talking about fueling quite a bit, but talk to me about the puncture. What's a pit stop look like for you? How fast are you getting that changed? Where you have plugs?
So the first
CO2
time
is stored.
It was a tread puncture and just the most innocuous piece of trail. I must have just rolled a flint rock, or maybe there was a nail. I don't know. Couldn't tell you what actually caused it, but it had a tread puncture. Rode along for 10 seconds to see if it was small enough for Orange Seal to seal it up. It was not. So I actually had to put a big Dyna plug and a small. So no surprise, Orange Seal couldn't seal it. But then it sealed up, no problem. Hit it with a CO2. At that point, there was a second group coming on the road. So instead of chasing the group I was in, I kind of got absorbed into that second chase group, probably third or fourth group on the road once we included.
Which is nearly the worst thing to happen in some ways, because you're caught in that dynamic we talked about again then, where it's like, I'm the strongest guy in this group.
Yeah.
But am I going to pull everyone back here?
It seemed like a pretty motivated group, to be honest, and I could kind of float in it, and my goal was to kind of do as little work as possible, kind of like show my face at the front so like everyone's motivated to work, like don't sit on kind of thing. But my goal, and I rolled the dice that Orange Seal would hold my rear tire, and it did. I actually did not change my wheel at that first aid station. I used the aid station to try to jump groups. So essentially, we had a pit stop strategy that would have me there less than 5 seconds. So Daniel had my Usui. I threw it on that back. I also had a musette, and then I just kept going, picked the things out of the musette and tossed it, and he would find that for me. What did happen is Matt came in, I believe, before me and did swap his wheels. So I had Matt now in the group chasing. And so him and Brennan Wirtz, two of probably the biggest motors in gravel racing, were working on the front and towing the group. And unfortunately, Matt flatted again, but we were within 10 seconds of the group that I had flatted out of by that point. And so we made it back. Yeah. And then split in the crosswinds. I think it was a group of like 10-ish of us with me, Keegan, Finsty, Alexi, I think Mads from Pa Normal. At least there was a Pa Normal kit in there. And then we went through a creek crossing that was super rocky, and I just put my wheel in the wrong spot and pinch flatted the front. Again, plugged it with 2 plugs. Had rotated my bars forward, so I had to kind of like figure that out. And then by that point, that's the worst thing to happen. Flatting and Unbound isn't terrible if there's still groups, but at that point, that was the group, and then it was just 1s and 2s behind, so it was kind of solo TT for the rest of the day. And then at that point, I thought it was better to swap both wheels in the next aid station and have fresh tires for the rest of the race than to, because I wasn't going to make it back to that group by myself.
Yes. What's a puncture costing you time-wise? 2 minutes more?
The first one was probably a minute. Just plugged it really fast, hit it with a CO2. The second one was, since it was a pinch flat, it's that awkward, like you have to find the bead right along the rim where it's coming out. And then I also had to like adjust my bars up, and that one probably cost me 3-4 minutes.
That's brutal. I also love how we're so dialed on tire pressure, and everyone's doing podcasts about their tire pressure pre-race. And then it's like, yeah, puncture, and I just whack in a CO2 canister.
Yeah, that's true.
I had a mountain bike crash last year on that, and it was one of those ones where I was with a group, some good guys in the group, and I felt like I was holding them up a little bit when I flatted. You know, when you don't know the group, I'm a bit self-conscious, like I'm fixing this flat fast, but the second flat of the day, tubeless isn't holding. It's got to the point where a tube is going into it. Get it fixed, just whack a CO2 in, go to hit the next trail hard, and just wash out front wheel on probably 90 PSI or something stupid.
Yeah, no, I played around with actually running the Tire Whiz. I ran it at Big Sugar last year. What's nice about it is when you do plug a rear tire, or when you hit it with a CO2, not necessarily setting it to the right pressure, but to know if it's holding, right? Like if you see it at 26 PSI and then you check 30 minutes later, it's still at 26 PSI, then you have confidence that your plugs are holding and you don't have a slow puncture. So those are quite useful in those cases, and I tend to run them on gravel for that reason. But it's also, yeah, like you said, nice if you are on a training ride, you can use them to make sure the pressure is right when you reinflate. Yeah,
Zip have that air pressure in their new wheels as well, which I haven't played around with yet, but I'm excited.
And the alternative is, I know instead of CO2, a lot of people these days are running those electronic inflators, and you can actually set those to the pressure you want. So, you know, if you know, say you're running 24, 26, right? I'd set it to 26 just to make sure, like if you flat the front, you just run a couple more PSI, and then you can hit it with that and it hits it to the right pressure.
Are they pretty fast to go up though? Or I kind of feel like almost a meme of trying to put a camping bed, trying to get it inflated with one of these things.
I wouldn't say it's as fast as a CO2, but it's also, I think, the equivalent of 4 or 5 CO2s. So for the size and weight, I'd say probably worth it, and definitely something for me to look into for future races.
Yes, I am actually. I'm going to look into that as well for some of the longer stuff.
Yeah,
I'm doing. As you were second puncture, solo TT, at this point, is it all hope is lost of getting back into the race? You're just kind of trying to max effort from here to the finish time trial style?
Yeah, it was definitely max effort from there to the finish. Maybe I'm blindly optimistic, but I mean, in a race like Unbound, I feel like anything can happen. maybe the group up front starts playing games again and there's negative racing, or one of the good guys flats again and I catch them and now I have help to get back up. Who knows? I think just for me, don't give up was kind of just what was playing in my head, and you never know what's possible. So just kind of put my head down. And like I said, regardless of the result in Grand Prix points, I think it was like 12th or 13th, I might need those points later if something happens at the other races. You know, in a perfect world, this is ranked number 6 of 6 on the races. So I hopefully will drop those 13 place points, but bike racing is bike racing and you never know what's going to happen.
A quick word from today's sponsor. A few years ago, I came out of my local coffee shop after a long winter spin to find my Cafe Lock on the ground, sliced clean in half. My pride and joy bike, it was gone. Just like that, a small fortune in kit, and frankly, part of my identity as a cyclist, it disappeared in seconds. If you've ever had that sick feeling in the pit of your stomach, even imagining your bike getting stolen, wrecked or damaged mid-travel, you know it's not just a possession. It's your freedom, it's your fitness, it's your sanity on tough weeks. That's where Bicmo comes in. Whether it's theft, damage, crashes, racing or travel, Bicmo's got your back. Their in-house claims team makes the process fast and painless. And here's the kicker. With 50% off multi-bike cover, you can protect all your bikes and even your family or your mate's bike under the same policy. No nonsense, no surprises. But Bicmo isn't just about covering bikes. They actually care about the future of cycling itself, and that's why I've partnered with them. If you insure your bike with Bicmo today, they'll donate £10 toward trash-free trails to help clean up and protect our shared cycling spaces. So head on over to Bicmo, BIKMO.com, and use the code ROADMAN to get covered, save money, and support our wild spaces. All that information is in the description below. It's actually a great lesson for just anyone listening, for gravel racing or road racing. It's like, you just don't know what's going on in front. Just control your controllable. Like, all you can do at that point is measure your effort to the finish and leave everything out there. You can't figure out and predict the future dynamics of groups, who's going to crash, who's going to flat.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know what's going to happen. And at that point, I kind of just played the average speed game. I was at 22.2 when I flatted, and I finished at 22.1. So just tried to keep the momentum going.
How, obviously, if we were to go back and replay the race and you were to get to do a do-over, you try and get out in that early break and get ahead of the racing. How competitive is it to get into those early breaks? You know, from my experiences racing in Europe, at times the early break can be very competitive to get into.
I think
a lot of
it'll be more
to
competitive moving forward. I think this time, it caught a lot of the field off guard. I think the advantage also we have on gravel, especially with the rain, is you can use a technical piece to get in the break. You know, in the road, you kind of have to use pure power. The teams look at each other. Are you happy with that? Are you good with that? Number 96 went up. Do you have him on your sheet to watch? It's more, and then they block the road, and that's that. In gravel racing, with maybe the biggest team being 2 people, you kind of just strategically put yourself up the road or at the front and then just drive the pace. And then it's similar to mountain biking with bottlenecks. There will be gaps just because you don't know where they'll be, but someone's going to overlap wheels, someone's going to slip out, someone's going to cause a gap, someone's not going to be as technically inclined as someone else. So you can kind of roll the dice on that being the case, to a pretty, I guess, beneficial extent in terms of it's likely to happen. It's just like sea otter. I don't think going up the corkscrew you'll win the race, but if you're 30th wheel, you're leaving yourself open to someone crashing going into the dirt, someone crashing on the descent. There are more people between you and the front to drop wheels. So
yeah, like the lads from Tudor Pro Cycling, I don't know him super well, Simon, but he had a big send early in Sea Otter as well. Yeah. So he's definitely one that likes to get out ahead of the racing.
Yeah, no, I think that's also what makes this series so exciting, is we've done 2 gravel races, and both at sea level, and now we're about to do, well, a quote-unquote mountain bike race, a mountain bike race on drop bars at 10,000 feet of elevation. So a lot of these guys, how do they perform at 10,000 feet, you know? And that's a new element. And then we go actually on mountain bikes for Schwamigan, which is like a 2-hour dirt crit. And then we do a proper mountain bike race in Arkansas where can you handle your bike? Can you keep air in your tires over rugged terrain? And then we end it with a more flat, heavy Arkansas course for gravel. So I think that's what makes the series interesting, is they gotta prove themselves in a lot of different ways.
Anyone in the top 10 that you didn't expect to be there? I'm looking at it, and for me, they're not a lot of the household names. You know, obviously Keegan in 17, Boswell, former winner, former World Tour rider, in 8. Brendan Johnson's in 5th. I have to say, I didn't know the Shrek lad at all that came third. Torborn Andre Road. Don't know him at all.
Nah, I wouldn't say anything surprised me. I know Cam is super strong. We rode when he was out here for Sea Otter. I know Simon is also very strong. This is exactly what he used to do when he raced road. He was the most aggressive rider, most time in the brakes. Like, he knows how to ride that kind of effort. Toby, he's just super strong, and he's super strong on any bike, on any surface, so didn't surprise me there. Trekkies put a lot of effort into this event. He was in Kansas for the 2 weeks before, so I think that's just a fruition of the work he's put in, and he's continued to get better. He was, I think, 4th in the series overall last year, so he's super strong, and super strong again across any bike, any discipline, any surface.
Who's the big losers? Anyone from the overall? I'm trying to think. Alexi, you know, was he 2nd or 3rd in Sea Otter? Not featuring.
For me, big losers need 2 bad results. I think you have room for one. So Alexi in my book now just has 2nd, and he just, for now, Unbound will be his drop race. So he's not a big loser until he has another outside of the top 10 result or something not usual of Alexi. I think I struggle to call them big losers because it sounds very mean, but I think in terms of who's on the back foot, maybe, is Cole. Cole didn't have the Sea Otter he's capable of, and then got sick coming into Unbound. Payson now has 2 DNFs, so I'm thinking of people who now already have 2 results that would be outside their norm, I guess. And in that vein, Russell kind of surprised me in terms of, I wouldn't say he had the Sea Otter or the Unbound we've come to expect of him. So I think those riders I kind of have in my book as like it's an uphill battle now. Even myself, I don't feel a huge amount of pressure coming out of Unbound. We knew if I got a top 5, that's kind of just icing on the cake, and I was capable. But I think I've top 10 the rest of the events in the Grand Prix overall, without even including Grand Prix riders. So I think for me, that's kind of Unbound done, and somehow still squeaked into the top 10 overall with that result. And now we get to the fun ones.
And the pressure on the likes of Payson and the other guys you've mentioned, because you've fewer Grand Prix spots than we had last season. They've shown very little romanticism around legacy riders. They're more than willing to cut the likes of Alex Howes, you know, one of the big characters coming into this season, from the series in favour of the European guys. So there's nothing to suggest that's not going to continue again into next season. Losing the Grand Prix spot, unless you're a Lachlan Morton, it's a bit of a death sentence for a gravel rider at the moment. So the pressure's definitely going to be piling on those guys into the 3rd round.
Yeah, maybe not Payson specifically. I think he's done a really good job of essentially working 2 jobs. I mean, his podcast is super popular, and he does a lot of work around content creation, as well as like
he was brilliant in coverage as well, actually.
Yeah, and full length video like he did. Was it Crossing Australia?
Yeah,
he's done a few of those, but like I think he mixes the 2 very well, of kind of personality, but also I'm fast on a bike. But I know from what I know of Payson that the results are probably more important to him than being a personality. So I think it was very validating to get third overall last year, because I think he's had some really bad luck in the series. He's had some injuries, and now he's crashed at the first race. I think that's because I remember the first year it happened, I think he crashed before Sea Otter because he was on the coverage again the first year of the Grand Prix when we were racing Sea Otter. So yeah, no, I feel for him, but also I don't think anyone's doubting that he knows how to ride a bike.
Feeling good into Leadville?
Yeah. No, I took at the tail end of a week completely off. We start back up on Monday and then leave for altitude on Thursday. So really excited to get after it. I hope it's still just as fun on drop bars. I definitely miss mountain biking a bit, so we'll see.
What date Leadville?
August 12th. It's going to be an interesting one this year because my wife is doing the Leadville 100 run. So we're doing.
She's going to be a lot more fatigued than you are.
Yeah. So the plan as of right now is for me to race Leadville, and then I'll do Breck Epic, and then I'll crew her for her Leadville 100 run. So we booked a place in Breck for the month, and we're going to be up at 9,500 feet for a good amount of time.
Nice. I love it. We'll chat again for Leadville. Alex, well done. Great start to the season. Thanks for bringing us along on the journey and giving us a little chance to live vicariously through you and pretend we're good bike riders.
I do it as well. Pretend I'm a good bike rider.
Best of luck for altitude camp, and yeah, we'll catch up for Leadville.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
This episode today has been supported by BICMO Cycle Insurance. Insure your ride with BICMO today, and they'll donate £10 to Trash-Free Trails to support their work in protecting our planet. Head to BICMO, BIKMO.com, and use the code ROADMAN to get covered and support our wild spaces. Terms apply.